This is another live radio link-up brought to you by the Government Communications GCIS.
Time has gone 5 minutes after 6 o'clock. Welcome to it, a special broadcast brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Karabalans behind the microphone, all the way with you till 5 past 7 this evening. It's going to be a jam-packed show like always. Thank you so much for the radio stations that are taking part in this broadcast for this evening. Looking forward to some good interaction and some good information coming our way. And we're going to be talking about a very important subject today, especially with the focus of the International Human Rights Day coming up. And today we're going to be talking about the South African Constitution. And joining us in the studio is no stranger to us, really. It's Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. This is Deputy Minister John Jeffery. And it's a very good evening to DM. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good evening, Karabo. Thanks for having me. Nice to be on the show again.
Right. Point of contact for this evening, very easy. It's 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. It's a toll-free number if you're going to be calling from a landline. Otherwise, if you're calling from a cell phone, you can use that number. We'll take your details down and call you back. It's very easy. You can call in any language of your choice. You're more than welcome to do that. So 0800 142 446. That's one way to reach us. Otherwise, Twitter, DOJCD_ZA. Instagram, that's DOJCD. And Facebook, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. I'm not going to waste time, really. I want to jump straight into it. We want to use as much time as we can, really. So what is it that we are looking at achieving this evening? Really, I'm going to be honest with you. We want to reaffirm the Constitution as a cornerstone of the country's democracy, an instrument for development and transformation. That's one thing that we would like to do. Of course, we want to create public awareness of the rights enshrined in the Constitution and reinforce the culture of human rights. And what about highlighting progress made in the transformation of the country since the signing of the Constitution? That's one thing that we got to look at as well. And of course, to mobilize the different stakeholders to participate in the promotion of constitutional rights. And lastly, finally, not least, to raise awareness on International Human Rights Day, which I'll be telling you about shortly. I'm going to be getting more information on that coming up, and I'll give you all the details. So, DM, let's jump straight into it, really. Just give us a bit of a background on the Constitution. And they call it the cornerstone of South Africa.
Yeah, well, it's the supreme law of the country. All laws have to be consistent with the Constitution. So I think most people should be familiar with what is a constitution. You'll have a constitution of a society or an organization that the conduct, it sets out how that organization is going to be run. So same with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It sets out how the different sections of government work. It has a Bill of Rights, and all laws have to be consistent with the Constitution.
But we say that the Constitution is very, very important as far as the democratic country is concerned. We want to jump into that as well?
Sure. I mean, look, we've always had in South Africa a constitution. The issue was just before 1990. Well, before 1994, it wasn't a democratic constitution, but it was still a constitution. So just because you've got a constitution doesn't mean that you've got democracy, you've got a respect for human rights. It depends what's in the constitution. And so in the transition, the parties, it was an inclusive process, negotiated an interim constitution, which was passed by the tricameral parliament in 1993 to come into effect on the 27th of April 1994. And part of that process was that there was going to be elections for a new parliament, and that both houses of parliament would constitute or form a constituent assembly, and that constituent assembly would then draft a new constitution for the country. So the 1993 constitution was called an interim constitution because it was only meant to be there for a short period.
Can you call it a draft?
Well, it was an interim constitution, so it was to allow for
a bridge type of
a bridge. Yeah, a bridge is probably the best description. The parties did agree on constitutional principles that the new constitution had to be consistent with. So it wasn't as if the Constituent Assembly could do what it wanted to do. It was bound by those constitutional principles.
Right. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 10 minutes after 6 o'clock. If you've just joined us, well then welcome to it. This is our special broadcast and it's brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Episode 25 of the series of broadcasts that we're having with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. We're talking about the South African Constitution with a special focus on International Human Rights Day that's coming up. We're going to be jumping into human rights as well, and Deputy Minister John Jeffery in the studio with us. It's not the first time he's here. In fact, I didn't even have to brief him. I just said, DM, you know what to do. He said, no, thumbs up. So we're doing this thing. So interact with him, 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. Speak in any language of your choice. You're more than welcome to do that. Sesotho languages, Sepedi, Sesotho, you're more than welcome to do that. Zulu, Xhosa, Ndebele, Tsonga, all of any of the 11 official languages, you're more than welcome to do that. So 0800 142 446. This constitution that we're talking about, DM, how vastly different is it to I want to call it the apartheid one, for lack of a better description?
It's quite substantially different. For one, it provides for universal suffrage for everyone to have the right to vote. Because in the apartheid period, apartheid was about racial segregation and white supremacy. So at one stage, only whites could vote for parliament. Then in P.W. Botha's time, there was an attempt to try and extend that a little bit, and two other houses of parliament were created, and that's what's known as the tricameral parliament. That was about 1983, but African people are still excluded. The theory of apartheid was that African people belonged to different ethnic groups, and a homeland or Bantustan was where those people were meant to live.
Right.
So if you were in Ndebele, you would be then living in KwaNdebele.
Right.
And that's where you were meant to be voting, even though KwaNdebele was a tiny bit of land. And I think most Amandebele were living in the rest of South Africa.
Right.
But anyway, so that was that as far as the vote. The other issue is the supremacy of the Constitution and the fact that all actions of government can be reviewed by the court, and the courts can actually rule whether a law is unconstitutional or whether an action on the part of government or in fact anyone in South Africa is unconstitutional, and they can strike that down. That didn't happen before.
Right. Now, there's different chapters in the Constitution, and that's what I would like us to jump into right now, DM. Maybe let's start with the first two chapters. If we have time, maybe we could explore further chapters. But perhaps let's start with Chapter 1 of the Constitution. In simple terms, really, what does Chapter 1 constitute of?
Look, before you get on to Chapter 1, there's a bit before Chapter 1, and that's the preamble. And that's a very short page. It basically, though, sets out the spirit of the Constitution, the approach.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't actually say specific things that this must happen or that must happen, but it's basically the purpose of the Constitution. Chapter 1 is probably the most important chapter because it's the founding provisions. That South Africa is one sovereign democratic state founded on the following values: human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. Non-racism and non-sexism, the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law, and universal adult suffrage, a national common voters' roll, regular elections, and a multi-party system of democratic government to ensure accountability, responsiveness, and openness. That's the first section. The second one goes on about the supremacy of the Constitution. The third one is on citizenship, because citizenship in the past could be taken away. The apartheid regime could take someone's citizenship away from them. And then the languages, the 11 official languages, are set out in Chapter 1. Now, Chapter 1 is very important because it's the only section of the Constitution that requires a 75% majority to change it.
Okay.
The rest of the constitution, you only need a 2/3 majority in the National Assembly and 6 provinces in the National Council of Provinces to amend the constitution. But with the founding provisions, they're so central that it was given an even higher majority needed, and that is 75% of the National Assembly must support an amendment to Chapter 1. As I said, the rest of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, everything else is 2/3 majority, 66.6%.
Awesome. 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446, toll free number if you're going to be calling from your landline. Instagram at DOJCD, Twitter it's at DOJ_ZA, and Facebook, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Deputy Minister John Jeffery, with us in the studio for the next coming, 55 minutes, 50 minutes or so. So you make use of that time so you can interact with him in any language of your choice. I'd really appreciate it if you do that. So hello, constitution e re bolelang ka yona ga botse botse ka go thuša ka eng re re jalo le wena wa re boletse mogala mo nomorong ya rena mpio fela 0800 142 446 ngeke ukhokhe lutho ngempela uzobe sewushayela thina sizobe sikushayela move asithatha amanamba wakho sikushayele back. So that's how we're going to do it. 0800 142 446. I think let's open the telephone lines already. Thank you so much for this first call. I'm going to see it's coming in from Petermaritzburg, and we're chatting to Mark Mthembu. Bamthembu.
Mr. Lance njani?
Ngiyaphila baba kunjani?
Ngiyaphila ngisePietermaritzburg ngilalela kumgungundlovu 107.6 FM, the sound of choice of KZN Capital.
Siyabonga baba, siyabonga.
Ngiyasiza isihloko lesi simnandi kakhulu njengoba sikhuluma ngawo umthetho sisekelo lowezwe. Kodwa manje mina okubuye kungidide kakhulu mina njengami njengiyisakhamuzi sala eNingizimu Afrika. Uma ngase ungibuze ngeconstitution ukuthi yala eSouth Africa imi kanjani ngoba siyigcina lapha neParliament, ikuphi khona kwenza uhulumeni ukuthi kube khona amabhuku athola umphakathi ezikhumeni zakho uhulumeni ukuthi umphakathi ukwazi ukuthi wathola amabhunyana ama-booklets ukuthi ufundiseke ngeconstitution yaseSouth Africa, kakhulukazi intsha nabantu abadala ngoba abantu abaningi abawazi umthetho sisekelo wezwe ukuthi uhamba kanjani, umi kanjani. Yibona bagcina bewukhuluma lapha eParliament besho inamba lezi ukuthi usection bani ukuphi uthi thina sibe singawazi. Nasey'koleni ngabe mhlawumbe iy'ngane ziyafundiseka yini ukuthi ngawo umthetho sisekelo ukuthi sigcine ziwazi ukuthi umi kanjani.
Siyabonga ubhuti Mark. Konje ulalela kuphi? Ngubundlovu?
Usibiye impela uSotoba umphathi womgungundlovu FM.
I thought you were going to do the whole pay off line for me there, Mark.
Ngiyacela futhi uma senibuya kule nhlelo zikagovernment sacela siphathele uMinister of Communication.
Okay.
Ngoba kunezinto ey'ningi esidinga ukuthi sizazi siwumphakathi kakhulukazi ngoba sifuna ukwazi ukuthi kwenzakalani kwa-communication.
Okay. Yo, Mark, I don't know if you were listening. The minister was actually here 2 days ago.
Or 2 days ago.
Why me? But we actually spoke to her and she'll be back again. Don't worry about it.
Okay, Lance, thanks, my brother.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that. Really appreciate it. Moretile from Skukuni, am I right? Moretile from Skukuni? A caller from Skukuni?
Hello.
Ronald guy.
Hello. Ronald,
yeah, put your line him.
One law and one nation.
Wangor shall change over when we want to wang or I cover batho ka moka ka. E bale when we want to wang.
Ke bona gore ka re ona le batho ba ba o tselane ba bapala ka ba bampa
ba berekisha ona molao. Okay, all right. All right, re tla bona gore re fetola jwang ka re putso ya gago. Moretele from Skukuni, really appreciate it. 0800 142 446. Minister, let's start with Mark's question. A very important question, really. In fact, it was a question that I've noted myself. It's very interesting that Mark is asking this question. He wants to find out, as far as education is concerned, how far is the department taking education of educating people, rather citizens, more especially children in school. You can say maybe basic education, if you can maybe work with them. How far are we going as far as educating people as far as the Constitution is concerned?
Let me start by saying that it's very important or it's crucial rather than just very important. It's crucial for people to particularly know their rights. They should know when things are being done to them that shouldn't be done. So constitutional education is crucial, and that's why shows like this are particularly important. As far as the schools, my understanding is it is going into, or there is reference to the Constitution and constitutional education going into the workbooks of learners at school. There are copies of the Constitution available in all 11 official languages and in Braille. The Braille Constitution is quite expensive to print. It forms 3 boxes because it's indented print. Mm-hmm. So that's not so readily available. We've tried to make those copies available in libraries and places where people can have general access.
Right.
We've also printed what we call a slimline constitution, which is the preamble, chapter 1, and chapter 2, the Bill of Rights, and then a section at the back of that of where you can go if your rights are being violated. We've been giving that out the intention has been to give it out to all matric learners around the country at schools. So that's the intention. I'm not sure how in some areas I have heard the distribution hasn't been necessarily what it should have been. That slimline is also available in all 11 languages. So we are trying to make the Constitution available. We also do have, we had a colloquium, meeting of different government departments and civil society organizations that were interested and doing work in popularizing the Constitution. We had a 2-day workshop, I think it was, in 2015 with them, and from that a committee was set up to try and continue the coordination between government and civil society with knowledge of the Constitution. Maybe one other thing to say about with regard to schools. For the last, can't remember, but quite a few years, there's been a moot competition that has been run at any school that wants to participate. There's a question set each year, a rights-linked question, and then the learners have to write an essay arguing one side or the other side. That gets marked at a provincial level, and then the most successful schools in that province come together and compete in person at a provincial moot, and then the winners of that go through to a national moot, and the final is actually held at the Constitutional Court. So that's available to anyone who wants to participate. We're also trying with schools that are less resourced to get them to have assistance from lawyers' organizations, or from magistrates even, to give support to those students to help them empower themselves better. But the idea of that is taking a problem and being able to argue it.
Right. Quite a bit of work done there. So 24 after 6. Let's go to Moretele, who called from Sekhukhune. He mentioned something about one law, one nation. But his worry is about the enforcement of what the Constitution says. So how are we making sure that whatever the Constitution says, we all abide by it? Because he mentioned to me that one of his problems is that other people use the very same Constitution to deceive the others or to for criminal activities, he says.
Look, I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to. It is correct. It's one law for one nation, and I think that was the slogan from the Constituent Assembly. And it was particularly because in the apartheid period, there was a constitution of the so-called Republic of Transkei, the so-called Republic of Bophuthatswana, and so on. So that slogan was very much trying to emphasize that South Africa as a whole is one country. Yeah. But as far as the rights, the rights have to be balanced against each other. So there's no real absolute right. Your right to freedom of expression, which can include making a noise, maybe needs to be balanced by my right to privacy or not to have my neighbor playing their music all night long.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act. And there's a specific clause of the Constitution that provides for the limitation of rights.
Okay.
I'm not sure, though, what he's referring to in terms of criminal activity. Obviously, the Constitution is a framework, so you won't get prosecuted for breaking the Constitution. You won't get criminally charged for breaking the Constitution. You'll probably get charged with violating a law that's been made in terms of the Constitution.
Right.
But if you take something like the Equality Clause, which is the first right in the Bill of Rights, that everyone is equal before the law. Yeah, it's Section 9. Everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. If that right is violated, you can go to an equality court. And there should be an equality court at just about every magistrate's court around the country. A high court can also be an equality court. And you can take your matter there and lay a complaint against the person who you feel is discriminated against you. And that discrimination can be on the basis of a number of issues. It can be on the basis of race. It can be on the basis of gender, that it's a woman who's getting paid less than a man for the same work. That's something that could go to the equality court. It can be on the basis of religion, sexual orientation, a variety of aspects. But that's one remedy for when that equality clause is violated.
Right. 0800 142 446. Let's chat to Wanda from PE. Good evening to you, Wanda. Wanda from PE.
Molo mputi kanjani?
Ndiyaphila kunjani dad?
Ngiyaphila nami mputi yakhona. Mina ngicela ngicachisele ukanye kanye the constitution or as a right. Sebenzela for abantu abathile. Is it for the rich or for the poor? Because for example, when we get to the wrong side of the law, uyabanjwa, taken into custody. Bayakufundela ama-rights akho verbally, because you've got the right to remain silent, you've got the right to your cell phone calls, blah, 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 and all of those things. But they don't practice those rights. But you get people, they get everything. They even get food from outside. But when as you don't get to practice those rights. So I would like to understand, practice the Lavanabati. And secondly, racism. Just now, there was a Black Monday, for example. I'll use that as an example. There was a Black Monday. We had farmers here marching, driving through, and was the old South African flag. And this group, the AfriForum, doesn't say anything wrong with it. Now, I don't understand these rights or these concepts to what extent. You understand what I'm trying to get at?
I think I'm getting you, yeah. Right.
Sorry?
Yeah, now I'm following you.
Yes, that's what I would like to understand. It doesn't because now about the AfriForum, they don't say anything wrong. Who use a old South African flag. Whereas I feel racism against the black people.
All right. It's going to be a very interesting one. Wanda, thank you so much for calling in on that. We really appreciate it. Just listen on the radio and we'll answer it, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's Wanda from PE. Sapaza from KwaZulu-Natal. Am I correct? Pronunciation? Sapaza? Sapaza from Baba.
Yeah, ngiyaphila.
Siyaphila wena njani?
Ngiyaphila.
Mbuzo wakho uthini?
Ngilalela ikhwezi FM KwaZulu-Natal. Yebo, umbuzo wami uthi kwenziwa yini ukuthi kumthethosisekelo kuma-ranks awu-3 akhona abantu abaphezulu abaphathi nendawo nabaphansi. Ukuthi umuntu usebenza kahle kodwa uma kufika ku-6 years uya-retire noma kuthiwa akaretire ebevele mhlawumbe futhi uyahlupheka esikhathini ngawe uyaqhubeka nawe uyasebenza kodwa nabanemali eningi futhi uyaqhubeka noma sekufike 6 years esebenza ezoshaya apart nje ngaphela ka 6 years or 8 years futhi usebenza kahle uvele unemali kodwa kulabo abahluphekayo futhi mase kuna 6 years kuthiwa akama ukusebenza abese hlupheka uma kwenziwa yini lokho ngiyabonga.
Okay, thank you so much, Sapaza, for that. I'm not sure how we're going to link this one with what we're talking about this evening, but I'm going to try to find a way to link it in anyway. So 0800 142 446. 6:30 it is, chatting to Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development in the studio, Deputy Minister John Jeffery with us. It's been the fifth time, I think, if not the sixth time he's in the studio, so he's quite comfortable behind the microphone. Minister, maybe I should leave and you can take over the show by yourself. It just gives you a bit of a smile. It means no, you stay here. You know, you're gonna do your job all the way until the show ends. That's okay. That's okay. Let's start with this one. Yagasapa as a deputy minister, I'm not sure how we're going to. I don't even know how to start it, but he's quite concerned about two things. Number one, he says that retirement for the less fortunate or retirement for the poor, it's almost forced to them at the age of 60. But he feels it's different to those that are rich. They're not forced to retire at 60. They can go on working up until, say, 70, 80 if they want to. How do we link that with the Constitution? I'm not sure. But what does the Constitution say about employment as far as that is concerned? Maybe retirement. Is there any way the Constitution speaks about such?
Not that I can think of. I don't know if it is. I think it's up to each employer to set when is the retirement age. I remember, and I don't know if it's still the case, that a number of universities had 60 as the retirement age, particularly because they wanted to make space for, I mean, it was in the context of most of the academics being white or white males, and they wanted to make space for African people and women in general to move in. So that was one situation. I don't know if that's still the situation at some of the universities, but it was up to that university. The government grants, the old age grant comes into effect at, 60?
The age of 60 years.
It used to be 60 for was it, I think, men and 65 for women, or it might have been the other way around. That clearly would not have been constitutional if somebody had challenged it. I think it was sort of linked to the fact that women are meant to live longer than men or whatever. But anyway, that then got equalized to whether you're a man or you're a woman, it's 60 when you can qualify for the grant. Judges can they have to retire at 70. I think the idea is that a judge is somebody who's quite wise, and you want to keep that wisdom.
Right.
Magistrates used to have to retire at 65. We've just passed a law in Parliament allowing them to stay on to 70 if they want to. And again, it's linked to the knowledge issue, and that magistrates were there were too many vacancies in the magistracy. So that actually came into effect, I think, on the 1st of November, but it's just come into effect. I can't remember the exact date. So I think it's up to. I don't think it's necessarily poor or rich. It's who that employer is and what they have set and why. Obviously, if you're somebody who's using your body, using your physical strength, you may be required to retire younger. I think that there's no age of retirement for soccer players, as we've seen from some of the older ones. But obviously, as you get older, as you get into your 30s, you're less able to perform the way you were able to before. So I don't know if that responds to that. So really, what I'm saying is that if there's an equality, if in a company the rule is that top management can retire at 70, but junior staff must retire at 60, then you'd probably have an argument for inequality and something that you could take up as being unconstitutional, contrary to the equality clause.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that that answers Sapaza's question.
Hope it does. Sapaza, there's your answer there. You can call us back if perhaps you want a follow-up question. We'd really appreciate it. Let's talk. When you mentioned soccer players, I was tempted to talk about other teams, but let me just leave it. I was going to mention something like Orlando Pirates. Anyway, let's talk about some of the racism issues that Wanda has brought up. DM, he points out to the Black Monday protest that we saw, obviously mentioning a political party there or a group of people really saying that was it even lawful? What does the Constitution say about that? The right to protest, is it something that's expressed in the Constitution?
Yes, there is a right to protest, which was specifically put in because in the apartheid regime you had no such right. So the clause is section 17. Everyone has the right peacefully and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions. We then have a law called the Regulation of Gatherings Act, which basically provides that you don't have to apply for permission unless you're demonstrating near a court or near Parliament and a few other places. But you've got a right to have a demonstration, but you must give notice. I think if it's more than 15 people, you must give notice to the local authority that you're going to have this demonstration. You must give them details as to how many people are going to be attending. If it's a march, how many marshals you're going to have, what route is going to be followed.
Right.
And then the municipality can convene a meeting of the role players to discuss how this demonstration is going to take place. So that's what the law really provides for. Just on Wanda's point, I mean, everybody is equal. So whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're whether you're white or black, you all have the same rights. Unfortunately, we obviously come from a very racist past. I mean, South Africa was built on racism. So obviously, 20 years later, after democracy, you can't expect that to have disappeared, and it needs to be confronted and taken up. So I'm not excusing it, but I'm just saying we've got that legacy, but we need to challenge it. And yeah, I think there are some points around those demonstrations on the so-called Black Monday. I'm not sure if they had got permission. I gather that they blocked freeways and things like that. It's interesting in KZN that I think it was MKMVA decided in response to have a similar demonstration on the N3 near the Marion Hill Toll Plaza.
Yeah.
But that was in response
to the Black Monday.
To the Black Monday. And, if there was preferential treatment given to those protesters, then that's wrong, and that needs to be challenged. But, I mean, without, I think, getting into issues that I don't necessarily have the full picture about, there was the recent British Airways story, where 2 black passengers were asked to move into economy from business class because a white woman's seat was broken and they wanted her to have that seat. As far as I know, British Airways Comair are having an investigation into that, but it will be interesting to see what their response is. But yes, we can still have white people benefiting, but that's wrong. If you've got money, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does sometimes make a difference. But that's why the rights of arrested and detained people are set out in the Constitution.
Right.
It's important for people to know that, so that you don't have a situation where there's one justice for the rich and one set of justice for the poor.
Right, 0800 142 446. Twitter, it's DOJ at DOJCD_ZA. Instagram at DOJCD. And you can find us on Facebook as well, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Let's take a caller quickly from Richards Bay. It's Mbuyiseni Ndlovu. Baba Mbuyiseni.
Yebo.
Siyaphila kunjani baba?
Siyaphila njani?
Siyaphila, manje umbuzo wakho uthini?
Ngiyaphila. Ukhuluma noMbongiseni waNdlovu la Mshatuze Richards Bay. Ngilalele iNorth Coast Radio. Umbuzo wami uthi I wanted to put it in English actually.
Let's go for it, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to know from the minister what is the impact of the country's constitution on the registrability of the constitutions for voluntary associations, such as your trade unions, and possibly, I believe, the political parties also get registered.
So I wanted to know what is the impact of the Constitution on those constitutions, particularly with regards to when those associations go deliberately against their own constitutions, which I think on registration, their constitutions have to meet a certain criteria, which is probably aligned with the national constitution in the sense of they must be democratic. I just want to know if that is if it is the case that that has a negative impact on that registrability. What can members of that voluntary association do as some sort of remedy to correct that kind of behavior of going against certain provisions of the constitution of the voluntary association?
Right. Thank you so much. DM, would you like to jump into that before we take another call?
All right. Thank you, Gacheni. Look, I think with voluntary associations, it would be for, if there's disputes around whether the Constitution has been followed or not, it would be for members of that organization to take the matter to court. So without dwelling too much on it, you will have seen that the African National Congress, there have been disputes between members, and those have gone, a member has gone to court to say, look, the Constitution wasn't followed, or the correct procedures weren't followed in a provincial conference,
right,
or some other process, a process of electing selecting a candidate for local government. Another area that, and it's not just the ANC, there have been cases involving the Inkatha Freedom Party. I can't remember the other parties, but often there's disputes. These are with the smaller parties where somebody's a member of parliament and the party then decides they want to remove that person. I think the PAC has been fraught with a lot of internal conflict, and often those can end up in court, and it would be the court to look at, has the constitution of that party or that organization been violated, and also is the action inconsistent with the constitution of the country. Some churches also end up or have disputes that end up in court. I don't know if they have constitutions in that church, or whether it is the rules of procedure, but I think everybody would be aware of some of those cases as well. Yeah. So it's basically the Constitution applies to everybody. There is a right, just maybe to pick on some other things, there's a right to join a trade union. There's a right of freedom of association, but there's a right to join a trade union. The Constitutional Court at one stage had to decide, did that right extend to members of the SANDF? Was it right that I think the SANDF at that stage was arguing that, look, this is an essential service. You can't have SANDF members being unionized. Yeah. That went to court. The court, as far as I recall, found that they did have a right. Members of the SANDF did have a right to form a trade union. But if that trade union doesn't follow its constitution, then a member would have the right to take that to court. I don't think a non-member would because they'd have to show what is their interest. Yeah. If there's a dispute or if something happens in the DA, I don't think I, as an ANC member, could go to court and start saying the DA is not following its constitution. It would require a member of the DA or a group of members of the DA to take that matter to court.
Right. Let's go to Mati from Mtunzini. Mati? I beg your pardon. Mati from Mtunzini? Let's try the other channel. Mati from Mtunzini? All right. I think we've lost Mati there. 0800 142 446 0800 142 446. Toll free if you're calling from a landline. Otherwise, calling from a cell phone. We'll take your details down and we'll call you back. So be encouraged. Call us in this evening. I would like to shift our focus, really. I think we've exhausted Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and some interesting questions coming up as well there. We really appreciate those. But one thing that I would like to talk about, maybe let me just mention the 3 things that are going to be happening. In fact, these are the dates that I would like you to write down quickly before we jump into exactly how that affects these 3 things I'm going to tell you about. All right. there's three events that are going to be happening, right? The one is taking place on the 8th of December, which is tomorrow. It's going to be the launch of sexual offences courts in Colesberg. So look out for it. And if you're in the Colesberg area, please, if you can, attend that, or if you can be in the area to witness that, that would be really nice. The second one is the service delivery in Bizo. That's going to be taking place to commemorate the International Human Rights Day in, is it Gouda? Yeah, there we go. It's the cheese, ne? It's not cheddar this time, it's Gouda. Right, so that's going to be in the Western Cape, and that's taking place on the 10th of December. That will be 3 days from today, so look out for that one. The final one, the National Dialogue on the Transformation of State Legal Service on the 12th of December. So that's going to be happening as well. So I'll remind you again just before the end of the show, but what I would like us to talk about now, especially with a reference to what's going to be happening on the 10th of December, it's the International Human Rights Day. We'll talk about that now, but I see I'm being flagged that there's a caller right now coming from the Netherlands. All right. Is it the Netherlands? Is in like internationally, local? Netherlands? Are we taking that caller? All right, let's take the caller quickly. This is Itumeleng. Itumeleng from the Netherlands.
Yes, sir, from Netherlands,
Meadowlands.
Oh, that's Meadowlands. Okay, they wrote the Netherlands. I thought somebody's streaming, listening via streaming audio there. That's good. So for now, let's just embrace that. So Itumeleng, thank you so much for calling in. What is your question or comment? Hey.
law e dumelang gore motho wa monna a tswa ko ntle go country e nngwe a nyale mosadi wa South Africa and then a thole citizenship after 5 years. I mean, for now, I think it's wrong.
Okay.
Mosadi kena ka go country e and then a be citizenship ya ko a nyetseng go teng, not monna.
Okay.
And then the second one, I'm a tourist guide. I'm worried about country or our government, whatever the law, we allow the information. It's easy, it's free. Each and everyone can look in, information, and like before, we're really busy. People they were visiting no country, especially Victoria, but lately, not very few because about Google, everything is so easy, so easy. What about us? We participate in church and I go to go right to for that course. A tourist guide, and
because they're just Googling.
Yes.
So you would prefer they don't Google. You would prefer they contact you, maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Information.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I hear you. Yeah. Okay.
And then I'm not racist. But London, one can see the racist town or with a hair salon on the street.
Okay. Okay, now thank you so much, Itumeleng. Really appreciate it. Itumeleng from the Netherlands. And I'm just joking. From Meadowlands there. Really appreciate your call. So we'll see how we can jump into this one. It's very interesting. In fact, I wrote here that access to information, I wonder if there's an expression of it in the Constitution as far as that is concerned. We'll find out from DM now in a short while. So 0800 142 446, 10 minutes before 7 o'clock. If you've just joined us, welcome to it. Coming to you live from our studios here in Hatfield. This is courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. My guest in the studio this evening is Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. That's Deputy Minister John Jeffery. Here are the questions, DM. Itumeleng wants to find out. It was very interesting that she's worried. She's saying, why does information have to be so easily available to everyone? And in this instance, she's making reference to Google. But of course, that's not a South African entity. But the worry comes where she's saying she's a tour guide. People can just jump onto Google, they can search about our country, and she's worried that's not bringing income to her, because instead of people calling her, they go to Google. So I just wrote here, access to information. Can we tie it to that, to the problem that she's having? What does the Constitution say about something like that?
Well, what the Constitution says is Section 32, everyone has the right of access to any information held by the state, and B, any information that's held by another person that is required for the exercise or protection of any rights. And then there must be national legislation passed to give effect to this right and to provide for reasonable measures to alleviate the administrative and financial burden on the state. And we have then basically the Promotion of Access to Information Act, or PIER as it's called. But information is power. I would argue that we need to ensure that people have as much information as possible. So let's take the Constitution. We need people in South Africa to know their rights, to have access to the Constitution, that if somebody gets thrown off a plane, that they can then say, but this is against, you're treating me unequally.
Because they know.
If that is the case.
Right.
So I think access to information is something that one should be encouraging. I'm not sure Itumeleng's problem. I would have thought that, yes, you can read up, Google whatever you like about Meadowlands or about Soweto, but what that Googling should do is pique your interest in the place, to actually say, no, I want to go and see this.
Yeah.
And
this is where Itumeleng comes in.
And then there will be on the website, presumably, Itumeleng's number that she organizes tours, and this is how you can see it. So you can, the Hector Peterson Memorial is very popular. You can read up, I'm sure, online on Google all about Hector Peterson and the June 16 uprising that started in Soweto. You can read about Nelson Mandela's house. But people will want, I think giving them access to that information would mean that people would want to go there.
Right.
And obviously somebody can go there on their own, but you're going to have a much nicer experience if you have a tour guide.
Who says it happened here.
Yes.
Just here about this corner.
This is what happened. Right. And by the way, there's this other place that you can see which wasn't provided for. So I would have thought that, I'm a bit surprised. I would have thought that access to information online should be helping tour guides.
I think Itumeleng, look at it from that point of view. I mean, where you would come in really is to enhance the experience side of it. It's one thing to read up about something, but it's another to go and experience it and touch it and be next to it. So I think maybe just look at it from that point of view, really. But one of the issues that she's raised, the DM, is the issue with regards to foreign nationals marrying a South African citizen and getting citizenship after 5 years. As far as I'm concerned, that was revised, wasn't it, to 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know offhand the laws, but look, the issue basically is that if you come here as a visitor, you fall in love with somebody, and you decide you want to get married, you should have the right to stay in the country, whether that's citizenship or not. The reason the laws have been made tighter is because of problems of false marriages or marriages of convenience, here's somebody from another country, they want to stay here, they pay a person so much to marry them, and then they go off and do their own thing. But so it's a difficult balance. It mustn't be abused, but people should be able to move around and take citizenship of other countries. South Africans can move to other places and get citizenship.
I'm tying it up. The question that we've just tackled right now, I'm tying it up with this one, where she says, why is it so easy for foreign nationals to just come into the country? She makes an example of somebody just taking up a chair and set it somewhere in the middle of the CBD and start cutting hair. In other words, starting a salon there. She says, why is it so easy that people can do that, especially foreign nationals? Are our laws not tight to prevent that? That's what she's asking.
Look, I think, I mean, two issues. You can come into South Africa for a limited period. Well, in some countries you require a visa. Countries like Mozambique, you can come in for a limited period, and then after that period, you've got to go back again. You can only stay in South Africa if if you're a refugee and can prove that you're a refugee, then you can stay in South Africa. So
well, then you gotta have the relevant documents. Is it what we call asylum seeking?
Asylum seekers, right. Yeah. But the issue is there. Once, if you get rejected as an asylum seeker, you can appeal. The courts have said that asylum seekers and refugees, or asylum seekers who are being processed and refugees, do have the right to work. So that has been established by the courts, though. But I would have thought that there would be bylaws, municipal bylaws, in a particular area that you can't just set up a business.
Yeah.
And there may be a problem of those bylaws not being enforced.
Right. 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. Let's talk about the importance of the International Human Rights Day that's coming up. DM?
All right, that's on the 10th of December, and that is the anniversary of when the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that was quite a milestone, because it was the international organization saying these are the rights which should apply to everybody in the world. Inalienable rights which everyone is inherently entitled to as a human being. So that anniversary is the 10th of December. But the 10th of December is also an anniversary for us in South Africa, because it will be the 21st anniversary of President Nelson Mandela signing the Constitution into law. Mm-hmm. And then it took effect in February 1997. So on the 10th of December, we'll be celebrating the 21st anniversary of our Constitution becoming a law. And I think President Mandela chose that day because it was the day of the International Human Rights Day. And then he also chose Sharpeville as the place that he was going to sign the Constitution into law. And that's obviously for the history of Sharpeville
massacre.
And the fact that the anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre is our Human Rights Day for South Africa. Sometimes sort of people say, well, why isn't it Sharpeville Day? Why isn't June 16th Soweto Day? It's not, it's Youth Day. March 21st is not Sharpeville Day, it's Human Rights Day. But that's because you'll notice that we've tried, I think, as South Africa to broaden things. So we can take different, you can take a specific date where something happened, but broaden it. So, August 9
happened in a particular place, but we open it up for the rest of the country.
And the issue is broader. So let's take June 16. It was a revolt by the youth.
Right.
So it's broader than just that revolt in that Soweto, uprising in Soweto, but which spread to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
But actually saying this is the day that we will commemorate young people. September 24th is the anniversary of King Shaka's assassination.
Right.
But instead of saying, look, as it used to be in the KwaZulu homeland, that was Shaka's day, let's broaden it to make it Heritage Day for the whole country. So we've tried to take those days and broaden them, and that's happened consistently.
All right, 2 callers, then we're going to wrap it up. DM, let's go to Isaac and Brits. Isaac en Brits. Dis net hier langs ons. Dis nie ver nie. Dis net hier so nader. Isaac en Brits. Isaac's not there. Okay, let's go to Sivuyile in Cape Town.
Hello?
Sivuyile?
Alo, kunjani?
Ngiyaphila kunjani tata?
Hayi, asekapa emonele ne.
Siyavuya tata, siyavuya. Umbuzo wakho uthini?
Yazi mana lapha emonele eso.
Mhm.
Ngikuzani cha ukuzele umbuzo apha. Into esidayo kwezi right nakho umuntu ubanjiwe ne. Wenze ezoganela. And then lo muntu lona uyagqunywa ekweni ne. Uphinde after egqunywe lo muntu lona uze kuthiwa upressile kuthi abantu nabamlungele unomungo sonke ngaba ngokuthi mina ngokuthi kweliphi na ishala kuthi abasibo yena ngiqhubela nje ngasento izini right zozo bangaba umuntu ayekadinga makagcine nje kuphinde ubuyele emphakathini kuthi ngilungele ukuthi upressile uye waphumuka edirect ane bemqhubela kanti noma ngithanda ukuthi imasefu abantu abangazi sifaka engozini.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sivuyile from Cape Town. I think I do understand a bit of what he's saying. That line was not clear though, but we'll try to. I think I got the gist of what he was talking about. DM Sivuyile is worried about issues of incarceration. Somebody gets arrested and then he gets released. I think we've heard this a number of times, really. Let's talk about the rights of somebody who's being arrested. How does the Constitution express deals with issues of incarceration, issues of I think they would be linked to bail and so forth?
Yeah, well, it's Section 35 of the Constitution, and it's anyone who's arrested for allegedly committing an offence has the right to remain silent, to be informed promptly of that right to remain silent and the consequences of not remaining silent. They shouldn't be compelled to make a confession or an admission that can be used as evidence against them, and they must be brought to court as soon as reasonably possible, but not later than 48 hours after the arrest, and there's some provision if it's over a weekend. And then at the first court appearance after being arrested to be charged or to be informed of the reason for the detention to continue, or they must be released. And there's a right to be released from detention if the interests of justice permit, subject to reasonable conditions. That would link more to the bail issue. Basically, yes, we have tightened up the bail laws to make it more difficult to get bail in serious offences. Mm-hmm. In the less serious offences, the state has to prove why you should be held in custody. In the more serious cases, the accused has to show why they should be released. So it's a reverse, and it's more difficult. The issue about bail isn't so much is the person guilty or not. The issues around bail are going to be, is the person going to come back to court if they're released? And things like, do they have things tying them down? Have they got a job? Have they got a family? Have they got a house? Mm-hmm. A physical address, that kind of thing. That would help them get bail. Mm-hmm. The other issue would be, will they interfere with witnesses? Right. And, those are the main issues. So people sometimes confuse getting bail with but they'll say, look, there's strong evidence against this person. How can they be released? Mm. But that's not what the court's deciding at that particular point. But there are often a lot of problems in communities with the issue of bail. And I think where there are those problems, the other aspect is somebody can't be charged, somebody can't be tried unless there's evidence. Right. So even though there might be a strong feeling that this person has committed the crime, there's got to be evidence. And if there isn't evidence, then that person can't be charged, can't be held, and won't be tried. So, but it is an area where there are a lot of problems. I think that people should look at ways of taking up problems with local councillors, contacting the Department of Justice, obviously with a case number, if they've got concerns around bail.
All right, let's take a last caller quickly. Here's Joe from Gungundlovu. Joe? Sweet and short and straight to the point. Joe? 3, 2, 1. Joe's gone. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. We've got about 60 seconds to do that. DM, let me say thank you so much for having taken some time to come through in the studio. Really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks very much for having me, and I hope you'll invite me back soon.
So there we go. That's the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. That's Deputy Minister John Jeffery with us. Let's say big ups to the team. This is the man behind the sound. It's none other than Lindaba Zibugo. Thank you so much for a job wonderfully done, as well as Nontlantlanda Dawonde on telephones, and of course on YouTube you can get this video. It's on Government ZA, and it's brought to you courtesy of a man, one of our colleagues representing our video department, and this is the man Levi Moody by himself really. From myself, Karabolans, let's meet again next week, same place, same time. Ciao for now.